X-Men 97 just keeps getting better, and this week's episode is no exception. We're going to break down this episode, but more importantly, I'm going to talk about why X-Men 97 is setting up the future for Marvel Studios, in particular Marvel Animation, and why this episode in particular is the big first step that Marvel Animation is taking towards a bigger universe. Before we get started, leave a comment down below with what you've loved about X-Men 97 so far. I read every single comment, I most likely will respond, and now let's get right into the breakdown. We start this episode off at Gambit's funeral, and of course Gambit's death was a huge hit to the X-Men team, in particular Rogue, who we do catch up with later in this episode, but at the funeral we can see Rogue is not present and the X-Men take note of it. We also see members of Gambit's family here from the X-Men original animated series. Nightcrawler gives the eulogy at the funeral, and it's very touching considering Nightcrawler is finally back with the X-Men. And I do have to point out, with this series and watching a couple episodes of the original X-Men cartoon, Gambit is becoming one of my favorites. Just that line delivery in the 5th episode where he says the name's Gambit, remember it, just sends chills down my spine every time I hear it, and I'm loving diving into more of his character even though he is gone now. As I said, the team notices that Rogue, the one person who Remy loved and who loved him back, is missing. But that's not without a reason. Rogue is on a hunt to find Gyrich, the person responsible for killing Gambit, the person responsible for the entire attack on Genosha. She arrives at a military base led by none other than Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross. Of course, we know Thunderbolt Ross from the MCU with his appearances in The Incredible Hulk as well as Civil War, but here we see Thunderbolt Ross in his traditional military outfit in a base that was used to harness the Hulk. This location also hints at Red Hulk possibly becoming a thing with Thaddeus Ross turning into him, but I think they're going to save that for Captain America Brave New World. With the passing of William Hurt, Harrison Ford is actually taking over the role and will be playing Thaddeus Ross, maybe even Red Hulk in that movie. And this is the first point in the episode where we see Rogue, a beloved X-Men, a hero, start to show her dark side. She just lost the person she loves the most, and she shows a little bit of darkness here with Thunderbolt Ross. Turning over to the other X-Men, we see Cyclops, the leader of the X-Men at this point, losing faith in the team even more so than he was before. We've seen him slowly become less of an enthusiastic leader as these episodes have gone on, and when he is told by the UN that they're no longer going to be helping the search on Genosha for surviving mutants, it enrages him. I could possibly see a future where Cyclops leaves the X-Men and starts his own colony on the ashes of Genosha, which turns into, I think, Utopia. This is a story from the comic books, and it looks like they may be going that way. The X-Men arrive on Genosha and help out as many people as they can. We can see so many different mutants in this scene, and Hank McCoy, Beast, actually talks to a reporter and shows a little bit of a love interest, but at the same time, he is also losing hope. This episode kind of circles around the fact that the X-Men can only be taken to a certain point before they have to fight back, and not in the clean rule-following way, but by the any means necessary way. After getting information out of Thunderbolt Ross, Rogue heads to a secret base where she meets with Captain America. This was such a cool cameo, and this is going to lead into what I'm going to be talking about later in this video with the future of Marvel Animation, and this is a great first look. I love the interaction between Rogue and Captain America here, especially with him still being that poster child for the Avengers, and he does kind of mention them in this scene, and Rogue being kind of aggressive. She even throws his shield away and he has to go walk after it. They're both looking for Henry Gyrich and Bolivar Trask, those who are responsible for creating the Sentinels, the super mold that destroyed Genosha. But again, Captain America is playing by the rules and Rogue is not. Rogue eventually catches up to Henry Gyrich, and then a vision flashes before her eyes. We don't know what this is just yet, but we do learn what it is by the end of the episode, so I'm going to get into it when it occurs. When all hope seems lost, the X-Men actually find a surviving mutant on Genosha. This is none other than Emma Frost, who actually unlocked her hidden mutant ability of turning to complete diamond. We've seen this in the X-Men movies, but it's cool to finally see it in the animation, letting us know that Emma Frost did survive. Meanwhile, after leaving Genosha, Jubilee and Roberto go to visit his parents in order for him to come out to them as a mutant. He's very nervous to do so, but his mom actually knew all along. And while she is supportive, she kind of wants to keep it on the down low, not being fully supportive like she probably wants to be. And obviously this is a huge allegory and metaphor for minorities around the world, which is what the X-Men have always been about. Advocating for the little guy, being better, learning who you are as a person. And this show has just done a fantastic job in every single aspect of that, letting us relate to all of these characters and having all of these characters have something individual in themselves that allow many different people to relate to them. After a while, the X-Men catch up to Trask, who is about to take his own life. He has created something, an AI Sentinel human hybrid that will play into the end of this episode greatly with the introduction of a brand new character. He considers what he has done an abomination, and you would think at this point the X-Men will go out and help him, but they don't. Rogue, after being so disgruntled and so disheartened by the death of her loved one, dangles Trask over the edge of the building and actually drops him. And not only does she drop him and kill him, but Wolverine says that guy got what he deserved. The other X-Men don't really fight this, and this is huge because this is the tipping point for the team. They've had enough of the humans trying to make their race go extinct. And I think this is just wild considering everything that's happened in just this season alone, the arcs that our characters have gone on, the changes they've been through, but this is not where it ends. We see that Trask himself is actually one of these human Sentinel hybrids. A huge fight ensues and Morph actually turns into Quicksilver at this point, and I looked away so I was a little confused for a second on why Quicksilver was here, but then I realized it was Morph, showing me that Morph is extremely powerful, being able to mimic and imitate the powers of any mutant. Trask seems to be too much for all the mutants to handle, and then all of a sudden Cable returns from the future. They stop Trask and we get a brief reunion with Cyclops with his son Cable, but he says there's no time for reunions, Dad. He's clearly from the future where things have gone so wrong that he has to come back to this point to fix things, and while I'm not extremely well versed in the history of the X-Men show and why Cable is doing this and what things Cable has done in the past, it does seem like they're setting the stage for something huge to happen in these next 3 episodes and how the future needs to be changed in order to protect the future. We then cut away to Mr. Sinister, who we believe to be the big bad of this series, but it turns out he's only the pawn. Mr. Sinister is working with Bastion. Bastion is a human hybrid Sentinel who is actually known in the comics as Nimrod. He has no regard for human life, no regard for mutant life, and while I don't know too much about his backstory, I'm so excited to see where this character goes because the composure and the stoicism that this character has already is crazy. We learned in previous episodes and throughout the entire series so far that technology seems to be the biggest adversary for the X-Men, and what is worse than just technology? A man who is technology. Earlier in the episode, we see Bastion kill Gyrich, and now we see that Magneto actually survived the attack on Genosha, and Bastion is holding him hostage. It's super creepy. They play one-eyed, one-horned flying purple people eater in the background when he's on screen, and I have no idea what he's going to do to Magneto, but I assume he's going to either make him evil or turn him into a Sentinel creature, which is very sad considering Magneto has had this great arc so far and he's past his breaking point with the human mutant conflict. Now that we've broken down the episode, let's talk about the future of Marvel animation because this episode does so much. First, we have all of the X-Men, all of the characters, and all of the world building. We visit Madripoor, we see signs for Stark Industries, we have Captain America. And when asked when the 90s animated Spider-Man, who was actually playing on the TV behind me, would appear in X-Men 97, the writer said, "You'll have to wait and see." Which makes me believe that Marvel Animation is a new sub-brand for Marvel Studios where we can have all of these animated projects disconnected but connected to the greater MCU multiverse, or the MCM, the Marvel Cinematic Multiverse. I would love to see revivals of the 90s animated Spider-Man cartoon, as well as the Fantastic Four show, as well as Silver Surfer. But think about it, we could have so many different animated shows now, and we have all of these characters appearing in X-Men 97. We have the Daily Bugle mentioned with Eddie Brock and Peter Parker appearing on that paper. This is why I think this is just the start, and with how good this show is performing and how good this show is in terms of writing and directing, I see this as the tip of the iceberg, and it's going to open the doors for Marvel Animation in the future. Let me know what you guys think about this down in the comment section below. Leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you all very, very soon.